Hi, hey guys. Hello, hello. Welcome to our Sunday gathering for Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut's Legacy. We appreciate all of you being here. We have a lot of folks on today, so our intros are going to be short, but I do want to go around the room and just give everyone an opportunity to say hello. So let's just do some quick check-ins. Deb Cruz, how are you? That was quick. Deborah, how are you, Deborah?
I'm happy and well. Happy Ostara people.
Christina?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here and hear what Jarod has to say. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, super excited. We have Jarod Towers with us today. Ma, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Happy to be here, like everybody says, and really looking forward to hearing from Jarod. So happy Ostara too. Happy Easter, everyone.
Thank you. Alejandro, how are you?
I'm good. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. And Marcia?
I'm doing well. Great to see all your faces, and I'm really interested to hear about this brave little hunter. So, yeah.
It's going to be good. Howard, how are you?
Doing well. It's a bright sunny day. I see snow on the Olympics, and I'm looking forward to hearing about brave little hunter.
Yes, thank you. And then we have Joe Olson with us today. Oops, I don't hear you, Joe. You'll have to unmute yourself. It won't let me unmute you.
Okay, hi. Good to see everybody.
Hey, Joe.
Good to see you. Giles, how are you?
Great. How is everybody? Everybody looks so fantastic, and it looks like everybody's got at least a little bit of sun on their face, which is a nice change.
That is a nice change. Thanks for being with us today, Giles. And we have two very special people with us today. We're all special people. Raynell Morris is with us. Sk'aliCh'elh, thank you for being with us today, Raynell.
Hi, Sk'aliCh'elh. Good afternoon, my friends.
And I want to introduce you guys to Jarod. This is Jarod's first time on the show. And really just important that you're here with us today, Jarod. For those that don't know Jarod, Jarod's work primarily revolves around studying the movements, behavior, abundance, and ecology of cetacean populations using direct observations and remote sensing technology. Jarod typically spends over 100 days a year at sea conducting field research on killer whales in both hemispheres, but also has been involved in studies on minke, humpback, fin, say, blue, gray, right, and sperm whales in the North Pacific, South Atlantic, Indian, and Southern Oceans. Jarod manages several killer whale population data sets, helps advise and direct a number of cetacean research and conservation organizations in North America, and has published several scientific articles. And in addition to conducting conservation-based field research, also responds to cetacean incidents such as entanglements, entrapments, and strandings. And most recently, Jarod has been involved in the situation with little brave hunter Kʷiisaḥiʔis. I think I said it right. Jarod, you're going to have to correct me. Thank you for being with us today, Jarod.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's nice to be here. Thanks for the introduction. It's been a really intense week out on the west coast of Vancouver Island, and yeah, so just taking a break these last 2 days, and so the timing worked out really good to be here today. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you. Well, what is going on? What is going on? It's been a busy week. It's been, 8 days now? If for those that don't know, could you mind to give us just a little recap of the situation and how that's going?
Sure. I think it really depends how much time we have, because there's every day was so intense. We kind of lost track of what happened on which days. And before getting on the show here, I made a little timeline of everything that happened.
So take all the time you want.
Okay. Well, in summary, Saturday the 23rd, T109A3 stranded near Isabellis, and she had her offspring T109A3A kind of in a deep pool of water near her. I happened to be out with the T55s not far from Alert Bay on the water when my phone started to blow up. And at first, when you get a report of a stranded killer whale, 3 out of 4 times it happens to be a baby a Dall's porpoise or something else. So I just kind of waited for photos to come in. The first photo that came in was of an adult killer whale on its side, which to me indicated that it was probably dead. So I asked for a video, and then I unfortunately saw the video of the whales very much alive, her tail thrashing, and I hadn't even got any photos of the T55s yet. I was just filming them with the drone because they were prey sharing a stellar sea lion, and I just left. I just brought the drone back and got the boat up to speed and headed for home. The next step really involved getting out to the West Coast. The ferries weren't aligned, and I knew that kind of time was of the essence, and the tide was coming in, and that by the time I got to Isabellis, the tide would be all the way in. But also, just getting on scene as quick as possible can really help, especially when there's a calf involved. And so my friend and colleague Nicolette and I went out and headed out to Isabellis. And when we got on scene, the tide was high. Of course, the whale had passed by that point, and the calf was swimming in a deep pool of water right next to her. So there was a bunch of people on scene, and I got the drone up and was filming the little calf's behavior in the shallows around the mom. And it looked like this little kid was trying to get as close to its mom as possible, and from the bird's eye view with the drone. And it couldn't, because she was stranded in very shallow water, and the calf kept on trying. And what it did was it eventually went into the shallows, not far from the mom, and it passed through a really shallow channel and out into deep water on the other side, which was the lagoon. And there's about a 1-minute drone video of that. I'm not sure if you'd want to show that now or at another point, but it was actually amazing to film the beginning of the entrapment, because I think we were all hoping that this little whale would just pop out through the tidal rapids, and it was setting up to be high slack, so it was a perfect time for that little whale to pop out. And instead, it went the other way, unfortunately. And I don't think anyone expected that. I certainly didn't. And I happened to film it on the drone. And then I thought, uh-oh, this is not only just a stranding and a subsequent death of a whale. Now we have an entrapment of an orphaned calf. So that really set the stage for the days ahead.
I'll go ahead and show that now. Let me go ahead and add that to the stage here. Give me one second. I'm doing a few different things. Here we go.
So you can see T109A3A is swimming through shallows. She's in about 6-7 feet of water right now. And you can see, unfortunately, the mom is in the top left corner of the frame. And this is her kind of inching up to the point of no return. She's going through even shallower water here, maybe just 4 or 5 feet. And unfortunately, she swims out of the frame here for just a moment. But then I get her back. And you can see she crosses the edge of the bank here, and then she pops out into deep water, and then she's off. You'll see the drone come back. You'll see her come back into frame here. Okay, so that was the beginning of everything else that transpired. The next day, more colleagues showed up on site, and Paul Sk'aliCh'elh, the DFO Marine Mammal Coordinator, ended up towing T109A3 out at high slack. to a nearby beach, where the next morning we were scheduled to do the necropsy, which we did. Myself and Paul Stephen Raverty, the veterinary pathologist, Gary Sutton, Tasley Shaw from Basitology, Nicolette Audie, and myself, and a few folks from the local First Nations, and then Monday, that afternoon after the necropsy at high slack, we tried to do an acoustic playback, because we had also I should mention James Pilkington, my colleague from Fisheries and Oceans, came up, and we had selected some recordings of the T109Cs, which would be T109A3A's great aunt. That was the closest kin to T109A3 that we had recorded. And we thought that it was the best option to lure the calf back through the shallows. This is something I had success with recently in Alaska with 2 adult male killer whales, using recordings of friends of theirs to coax them through very shallow, very narrow channel and back out into open water. So we all thought this was our best bet. And unfortunately, and to our surprise, this playback experiment had the opposite effect. So instead of attracting the calf seemed to not quite sure what to make of these recordings and ended up swimming away from us. We tried it again with a very similar response. It didn't swim away quickly, but it just seemed a bit hesitant. And so we regrouped. The next day, we also used a playback to push the animal down to the other end of the lagoon, the end that we wanted it to go out of. And then we used a hukilau, the world's largest hukilau that James and Gary and Tasley and Nicolette and I built. It was about 1,400 feet long. And we used that to string along behind the whale to encourage it towards the shallows. We're using 2 boats, one on each end. And it worked in the beginning. And then the whale kind of got curious about it. This is the kind of thing that I think that if this youngster had any adults around, it might have worked. But this youngster is a bit curious and probably isn't as hesitant around things that are unfamiliar as adults are. So it started checking out the hukilau, and it went around both sides of it, and then it just swam away. So our next best option, of course, didn't work as well. After that, we had a really lovely meeting with chief and council and elders that went on for the better part of 3 to 4 hours. We talked a lot about loss and grief and kakowin, killer whales in general, and how important they are to all of us. And we just thought that it best to give the animal some space at that point. The animal's name was revealed during that meeting, Kūisaḥiʔis, which means brave little hunter. And the next day, we kind of rested and regrouped a little bit. The Ahadasat and Nuchatlit First Nation members of both First Nations paddled one of their canoes out into the lagoon and spent some time with the whale, singing, and they had a few close passes from Kūisaḥiʔis while they were doing so, which I managed to capture from shore with the camera. And the next day, we went back in using okumi pipes, and I think we had 10 boats, formed a line behind the whale, and attempted to drive it towards the shallows. It worked for a little while. And the whale started vocalizing, and obviously was very stressed out, and eventually swam right through all the wall of sound that those boats were making with the okumi pipes. And this is something I've seen before in Alaska. Big killer whales, they'll just ignore them. This little whale was obviously disturbed by them, but it wasn't enough to get her to go through the narrows, and instead she went under the okumi pipes and porpoised at high speed to the other end of the lagoon. And after that, we just said, no more. That's it for invasive techniques to try and move this little whale, because I think at this point we need to start building some trust with the animal, and really also pay attention to its sensitivities around having just lost its mother, collective mourning, and looking at other options for what might encourage this whale out, or just go in and actually physically remove it from the lagoon and release it back out into the ocean on the other side.
Joe, any questions from you so far?
Hi, Jarod. It's good to see you. Well,
Likewise.
Yeah, I don't even know really what to ask right now. I'm just feeling for that calf, you know. Have you talked with anybody that worked with Springer?
Yeah, so definitely there's definitely a number of people within Fisheries and Oceans which were involved in that, as well as Orca Lab, and between myself and Paul, we have close contacts with a lot of those folks. However, you know, when it comes to the next phase of a response, people like Jeff Foster have come to mind, and both Paul and myself have been in touch with Jeff. Yeah, and I think that if we move towards that next phase of response, it will obviously depend on the timing, as well as if this animal has managed to feed itself in the meantime, and remain healthy. And if not, obviously the next level of response would happen sooner. But I think people like Jeff may end up being involved in that, and other folks as well who are again involved with Springer.
Right. I talked with Jeff the day after, I guess, we first found out about this, and so I'm glad that you guys are talking. I'm curious about any thoughts of feeding the whale if it looks like she's not going to be able to kill for herself.
Yeah, so there's a lot of harbor seals in the lagoon, which is great. Kʷiisaḥiʔis herself is making a lot of vocalizations. Whether or not the harbor seals have clued into that being a threat at this point, I'm not sure. She was seen with a bird between her teeth the other day, but you know, we know that big killer whales often just kill birds and leave them alone. Even if she was eating them, it wouldn't be enough, especially because she was nursing. The mother was lactating when we did the necropsy, which at this point would, of course, just be supplemental, because big killer whales start taking solid prey at only a few months of age. You know, she's got great teeth on her already. That said, it's something I normally wouldn't ever suggest, you know, going out and trying to, you know, feed a baby killer whale. But in this case, it's kind of life over limb, and a bit of habituation might actually be necessary to coax it into a net pen or something. So I did pitch that at a meeting, and one of the local folks, Rob John, was interested in being that person, and so I encouraged him to, you know, try and build some trust with Kūisaḥiʔis in the coming days. So I think he's acquired some harbor seals and potentially some sea lions as well for that purpose.
Great.
Yeah.
I'd just like to offer a few, because I know you're working with the people on the north side of the border that had worked with Springer. If you want to have, besides Jeff, if you want any connections with any of the people down here before Jeff got involved, I'd be happy to make those connections for you, just in case there's any kind of knowledge that people had in the early days that might be of any kind.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that a lot. And I've been in touch most days with Paul Cottrell, working closely with him. He's a marine mammal coordinator, and between him and chief and council, most of these decisions are being made. So I'll pass that along to Paul. He runs a pretty tight ship. And
he does. Well, fortunately, I know Paul as well. We've had a lot of interactions on a business level when I built hydrophones. So we've known each other for several years. So if you want to pass my name along to him, I'd be happy for you to do that too.
Yeah, and I think it's there's no harm in offering advice. You know, Paul deals with a lot of things, but I think, you know, actually dealing with live killer whales is something that, you know, he, you know, has found input from others like myself helpful in this process. And sometimes it takes, reaching out and offering that. That's what myself and James Pilkington have done. For example, we just showed up because this is very much in our wheelhouse. Right. And it wasn't something Paul was being very inclusive around, but in the end it's been a wonderful team effort, and I think that collectively the knowledge between the local First Nations, the Kŵiisaḥiʔis and the Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut's, and also DFO and Baseology and Double Bay Sanctuary and a number of other people, groups, organizations, we've all really shared a lot of knowledge collectively, and that's really helped inform the process and kept us moving forward with a lot of hope. We do have the case of T46C2 Sam, who was a 4-year-old big orca in 2013 who became entrapped, and myself and a few other folks managed to get her out, and she had a peanut head at that time. She wasn't looking very good, but now she's a healthy young adult female. So that the precedent that case sets also gives us a lot of hope moving forward too.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Jarod, some people are asking, and I know I read early on, that there were a bunch of boats and a bunch of organizations out there looking for her family. Any recent sightings or suspicions of if they're in the area or not?
Yeah, well, I think even if they were, I'm not sure it would make a difference at this point. There's a tidal rapid separating the lagoon from the ocean. And even to get to that tidal rapid, you have to go around a shallow corner. And then after that, you have to pass through the narrows after the tidal rapid. So there's almost like 3 levels of barriers keeping this youngster separated from the ocean. So given that we all know killer whales can and often do travel 100 miles a day, even if they were sighted, I think it's a moot point currently. So that said, a lot of the work that I do through Baseology and in collaboration with Fisheries and Oceans is keeping track of big killer whales. So we definitely want to know where the other big killer whales are, especially any of the 4 different T109 matrilines, because they do travel a lot up and down the west side of Vancouver Island, and we expect that they'll be coming and going from this area.
Marcia, you had a question?
I have a question, yeah. So if you were able to sort of coincide, if you were in the position where you had to catch her and fling her and take her to deeper water, would it be possible simultaneously, if there were her family's sounds played, her sounds played to her family, do you believe that would draw them to where maybe you could find a meeting spot? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a possibility. And having said that, though, if Kūisaḥiʔis is out in a net pen or just out on her own in the open, she's got a great, loud, strong voice that she uses quite frequently herself. So perhaps if her family was out of earshot but nearby and going the wrong direction, maybe in a case like that, we might use a playback to get them to turn around to a point where they are in earshot. But yeah, it would just have to be very case by case, I think.
Thank you.
Giles, I'm going to check in with you, see if you have any questions or input here.
Thank you so much, Jarod, for that update and for the Facebook updates that you've been posting. It's so, as you probably can imagine, it's hard to not be there, and everybody wants to be there, and we all certainly are there in spirit. But the team that you just mentioned is the absolute best team that could be there. I'm so excited about that.
Thanks, Giles.
Yeah. I'm still, and I know it's a bit of a moot point, but kind of thinking about it in terms of if something like this should happen in the future, how is it that the mom was not able to be righted? Weren't there a number of people on scene? Was it just not, I've seen, I think I've seen killer whales on their side be pushed over. And she was a big whale, but not the biggest whale for sure. So
Yeah.
yeah, I hate to go back and kind of relive that part of the sad story, but in the interest of knowing what might be done, what could be done differently, maybe to right her so that she wouldn't drown.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't there at that time, and I've worked closely with folks who were, though, and talking to people like Rob or Jude or Kyle and Glenn, some of these folks that were on scene. The whale was on her side. I think there was something to do probably with her trying to get herself off in combination with the current over the shallows, which took her from being in an upright position to being on her side. Or maybe when she came in, her angle of attack was sideways if she was trying to hunt a seal in there. No one's really quite sure exactly what happened, but when people showed up, she was on her side. And they just didn't have the manpower to push her over. I was texting with somebody who was texting with somebody on site, but there's no service on site. So it's kind of like people would go back, into town, which was like a 10-minute drive to get service. And so the communications were really poor. I took one look at the photo, and after I seen the video, and I just thought they need like 100 shovels, and just start shoveling her out and to help flip her over. But they didn't have enough shovels, they didn't have enough people, and despite all pushing on her, she just they couldn't get her. She was slippery and massive. I mean, she was almost 20 feet long, and they just couldn't. And she was helping with her tail. Talking to some of the people, they seemed to figure that she realized that they were there to help. And I hear that a lot when there's stranded killer whales. People say, yeah, the whale knew that we were trying to help, and that there's no difference in this case. But yeah, and then so the tide came in, and of course, this same thing almost happened with T-68C1, who was, I believe, 3 when she stranded live in Alaska a number of years ago. She wasn't on her side, but she was downhill with her blowhole pointing down, and her tail was higher. And as she was coming up, she started to drown, and there's only 2 responders on scene, but they had a paddle, and they managed to put the paddle underneath her and apply leverage, and it ended up rolling her off the rock, and that saved her life. In this case, T109A3 was many times larger, so that I think there was about a dozen people on scene or something, and they just couldn't move her.
Had to have been just the most traumatic thing to know what was happening and to bear witness to that. But
yeah,
at least she wasn't alone. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to be prepared for something like this, and especially being in such a remote space. We don't always carry around 100 shovels.
Yeah, I think they did also have, they had been trained with remember response, some of the folks there, which was great. They'd been trained by Paul and DFO, and so they had some equipment, including refloating pontoons, and those were laid out. They didn't manage to get air into them in time. And I asked Rob John what if he thinks they might have worked anyways, and he says he's not quite sure, and potentially not, just given the way the whale was lying. It would have been really hard to float her from that position, and I kind of figured the same thing. So
and then my last question is, it sounds like you haven't been there for a couple of days, but did anybody get any imagery of the calf pooping?
No, there's been quite a bit of drone footage, but yeah, and I did think of you, Giles, when we were doing the necropsy, because we were extracting some feces from the colon and intestines, and I thought this stuff is really hard to come by. So anyways, there's some fecal samples from a big killer whale. I know there's only a few in existence at this point, so.
Exactly. Would I start super down a rabbit hole, but you said Stephen was there?
Yeah, Stephen Reverdy led the necropsy.
Okay, so maybe I can talk to him and Paul about getting some of that. Thank you. odd to be thought of when people are extracting poop, but it makes me feel very happy. Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought of you too, Giles, right away thinking, okay, so how do they know if she's eating, you know, he or she? I guess that's not 100% confirmed, correct, Jared? There's assumption that
Yeah.
it's a she, but
I think it's a she. I've got some drone video, and it's hard to be sure, but it looks more like a female. I know some people online are referring to it as female. I think it is, but I'm not fully convinced yet. So I'm just hesitating for the most part from saying he or she, although she slips out sometimes.
well, but I did think of Giles right away because I thought, well, how do we know what she's eating or if she's okay? And I guess that would lead me to my next question. I know that I guess the tides, they said over the weekend, were going to be not favorable to doing any really work to move her. Do you know what's the jump? And I know it's a team, so it's not like one person's decision, but do you know what that jump mark is going to be? Is it like if she's not eating, if she starts to show signs of, because in my head, I'm nowhere near like an expert in this, but while she's strong seems to be the time to get her in open water. But I know that there's, the hope to not force that and traumatize her also, but are there parameters that you guys are looking at to say, okay, no, now we need to do it, or are we just playing this day by day with her progress?
Yeah, I think it's day by day at this point. I think it really depends on her health, and just being prepared if the health starts to dwindle is going to be really important. I know there's communications happening around, what a more serious response might look like in the future. But yeah, it really depends how the little one's doing. And, perhaps if she is getting food, there, of course, would be hope that Kŵisaḥiʔis might find its own way out of the lagoon, or maybe with some encouragement from someone who's managed to build some trust with the little whale. And that could buy some time. Failing that, and especially if health is dwindling, then of course other ideas need to be considered.
Christina.
So I'm no expert either, but it just seems to me that time is of the essence to reunite her with her extended pod family. And I mean, I know it's respectful to let her mourn, but also she is a child. I mean, right? She's 2. I have children, and sometimes you have to tell your 2-year-old that you have to do this because this is what you need to do, right? Because that's the best for your best good. And it just seems like, I know it's really a delicate situation, and I know there's a lot of tough calls, but it just seems like the longer time goes by, that's just my gut feeling, is that she needs to get out into the open water so she can call. Like you said, she has a great set of pipes on her, and start calling them. And I mean, isn't that like her best chance of living? I mean, that's just really honestly the question I have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Getting her out is, I think, the second most important thing right now. I mean, making sure she's healthy is the first thing. And that kind of goes hand in hand with getting her out. But that's why we did a fairly consistent and, somewhat strong push to get her out before her health started failing this last week. But considering that that's failed, now we're somewhere between making sure she's healthy if she's going to stay, or looking at managed care and how that might even work. I mean, capturing this little whale in the first place is not going to be easy. So yeah, it's kind of a case by case, or it's a day by day thing. which there's a lot of communications around right now between chief and council and DFO and other experts.
Could you elaborate on managed care?
Well, I think managed care just refers to being within the care of veterinarians, and what that looks like. You know, if she is captured, you know, it's going to mean that, you know, people are responsible for her life at that point, and her health moving forward. So, you know, when it came to Springer, for example, you know, once Springer was in managed care, Springer was being fed, Springer was being transported, and Springer was being released. And that's really the only model we have moving forward for a case like this, that I'm aware of in this part of the world. And so, yeah, what that looks like is really up to those who are involved in that effort and can weigh in on the expertise of that. People like Joe and, you know, people like Jeff and other veterinarians, and yeah, people who can bring that experience with Springer to the table for this case, if it does end up going down that road.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Jarod, does the whale, the baby, respond to the tribal singing and drumming?
It's really unknown at this point. The whale did seem to really want to check out the canoe, and there's a photo of it there. But that went on for a few minutes, you know, kind of. This little whale is cautiously curious. She'll check boats out. She'll check different parts of the lagoon out, but she's not. She's a bit shy at the same time. So there's been efforts from the canoe, and there's also been some efforts from shore to sing and drum, and it's hard to know if she's responding really strongly to those kinds of things at this point. Yeah, I think that she probably is to some degree, but it's not a big attractant or a big deterrent. So it's unclear whether or not, you know, that can be used to move her in the future.
Because it just would be the blessing if she did connect with the canoe, and with the drumming and singing, they could lead her through the lagoon and the shallows, you know, out of there.
Yeah.
But she may be just too traumatized at this point.
She could be. Yeah, we're all hopeful for that, and we've talked a lot about it, and I think everyone's open to more of that because it is really non-invasive compared to some of the other approaches we've used. So, again, I think it comes down to building trust, and that might be hard for this little one right now, but in time, it could become easier as she gets starved for attention.
Right. Well, Haiska, thank you, Jarod.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so I was thinking that same thing, Jarod, is that it's been such a short amount of time. And by the time Springer showed up down here, she had been alone for months. But you know, I mean, you know the story. Everybody knows the story, I guess. But she was really fond of sticks, just like a puppy, right? And so she would follow that stick. You'd throw that piece of driftwood in, and she would follow that anywhere. And so, you know, maybe after a little time, this little one may also find something that she or he is really fascinated with that would follow out for you, especially if you could time it for the time when their pod shows up or when some of their family members show up.
Yeah. Springer still likes sticks, by the way. You know,
Right.
Yeah, I've not seen any other northern resident play with driftwood, but just a couple years ago, you know, she was passing a stick back and forth with A104, her offspring, and it was old habits die hard. But
well, yeah, a little new cultural tradition.
I was going to say you're going to have a whole new lineage of driftwood playing orcas.
Yeah.
Marcia, you have a question?
Yeah, so Jarod, you mentioned perhaps feeding this whale, and I was wondering at what point do you try that? And also, would it be even possible or an idea to use food as a tool to get her to go out, a conditioning sort of tool where you could throw some chunks and get her to maybe follow that boat along with that primary need that she has to eat.
Absolutely. I think we've all got that in the back of our mind, and we're all a bit hesitant to really speak loudly about it right now, because it is, not an ideal situation, but it, again, like I said earlier, it's life over limb at this point. And I think that, amongst the circles of experts, we're kind of coming to terms with, a little bit of habituation perhaps being really important at this point to save her life. So yeah, it's something that we've talked about with those in the community, and there's some folks taking that seriously right now on site.
Very good. I'll come up there and throw chunks of meat to this girl to get her out. I just kidding, no, that's, I'm all behind it. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I was the first to offer to shoot a seal, actually, when I realized how things weren't working out. But of course, I can't do that, and I wouldn't want to anyways. But
I couldn't do it. Somebody could bring me a dead seal, and I could probably go the rest of the way. But that's I can't go I can't do that.
But no, there's some allowances through First Nations food fisheries, for example, and for cultural and ceremonial purposes, which make it a bit easier in this case to provide that nourishment to this little whale if it chooses to take folks up on those offerings.
Awesome. Thank you, Jarod. I'm so grateful for the team that's there. I mean, you guys know what you're doing. You're looking at all these aspects, having these game plans and these things, like you said, in the back of your mind, knowing that it may have to go to that, but really looking at what's best for her and what's least evasive. I personally, I think I'd feel a little more comfortable too if Giles was up there just making sure that her, she's in all of our hearts, and I just appreciate you taking the time, somebody who's there doing the work, to be able to share this information with us and being so patient with answering our questions and sharing photos, and it means a lot to this community. And because I know everyone is just she's captured our heart, and so I know everyone every day is waking up, checking social media all day long just to see how she's doing. She's got so many people pulling for her, and just really just want to say thank you for everything that you're doing for her. You also shared some photos, if you don't mind, to maybe just kind of give us some words as I put them up on the screen.
Sure.
Just because I want to be able to share everything that you shared.
Well, absolutely. Let me first just say thank you to you as well for having me here, and everybody for the same. I just want to point out that it's sometimes difficult to really know exactly what to share in a case like this, and for that reason, people like myself and Paul Cottrell and Chief and Counsel are getting a huge number of media requests every day, which we're mostly ignoring. But I feel like there's a lot of heart in this whale community, and that people are here for the right reasons. And even though there's a 5% or 1% of people out in the public are a bit wild or crazy, and have nothing good to say about a situation like this, that 99% of people deserve to know what's going on. And I think that all the extra support from all the people who know that there's people on site and we're doing our best really can help make a difference. And so I just want to thank everybody listening, if they are really into this story, for their patience and understanding, because we're not often able to do the play-by-plays. It's a small team of us. There's no cell reception or internet out there. And we're engaged with stuff on the site, as well as really long meetings every day. And So I've tried to put a few things out personally as well as from Kŵisaḥiʔis, just because I want to, you know, give everybody who cares a little bit of background and an update. And so, yeah, thanks everybody for the continued support as well.
We really, really, really appreciate you. Howard, you were leaning forward. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, you've really answered pretty much all my questions, but I just want to say I really appreciate you being there for this little calf, and for updating us and for chronicling the whole episode as it goes, and it's still unfolding. But this is really, you know, important information, important historical reference. This little calf now joins the ranks of Springer and Luna and Keiko and Toki and many others who have interacted and built relationships with humans. Marcia can attest to with Toki. And I just think it's really, really valuable to provide that kind of narrative insight into how it's going. You talked about building trust, and I mean, it'll be day by day, but I think it'll be really, really interesting to see, and I see a lot of potential there, and I'm very heartened to hear that you're considering that you like that idea when the time is right. So I appreciate that. That's just all I wanted to say. Otherwise, you've already answered my questions, so I don't have any questions.
Okay. Thanks so much, Howie.
And Susan's here too, off screen today, but I just wanted to thank you and the Stranding team. And I'm staying off screen. I'm off, but I just want to thank you and Stephen Rafferty and the Stranding team and Paul and everybody. I know how difficult these situations are, and like you say, there's no good decision, you know, it's just impossible to figure out what is the best thing for us humans to do for these little ones in these situations. And it just sounds like a really impossible situation this one is in. And just thanks to all who did all they could for the mom, and to all, you know, just blessings to all of you for the road ahead. And we know what it's like with the merciless media pounding at you and the merciless public who doesn't know what it's like. And, you know, hearing from all of them, and thank you so much. Thanks, Annette, for inviting Jarod here today, and to you, Jarod, for being willing to share. And I know our staff are really thankful to have this information so they can share with the public that's asking us all kinds of questions too, so we can have your words to share. You know, we can share that part of the burden and share with the public what we've heard from you. And
yes.
No problem, Susan. Thank you.
Super appreciate you. And just being, just being willing to, and I would much rather have you there with her, you know, doing the work than reporting out on social media. So as much as we want to know, we understand that this community understands that you are doing what you need to do for her, and any update you give us after the fact, we do appreciate. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. I want to show a couple of photos, and maybe you can just talk to us a little bit. I don't want to miss any of the photos that you shared with us.
Sure. Yeah, this is a few days in. That's just out in the rain. Yeah, the little one passing by the boat. We're in the rainforest up here, so it rains a lot. Managed to get, this is a day of the stranding. This is a little one. These are taken from shore. They're just updated ID photos, which are going to help once she gets back out into the ocean and help us keep track of her. You know, so this is the day after the stranding. Moving T109A3 out of the lagoon at high slack. It was pretty windy that day. there's a mussel farm in the background. This is just a few days ago. Just a lone killer whale in a big lagoon. The lagoon's over a mile long and about a quarter mile wide.
Oh, wow. That's a
Wow.
Yeah.
And you also sent a couple of very short videos. So let me go ahead and get that. See if get this one loaded. You mentioned this in the beginning when you were talking. And that was the baby, right?
Yeah, that was just there's a hydrophone in the water, and that was a speaker that I have. Yeah, we couldn't see her at that point. She was down in the middle of the lagoon, but she was calling, and she typically does about a calls every 5 to 10 minutes. She'll call for a couple minutes and then stop. So yeah, we'll be going back on site to monitor just her behavior and acoustic and acoustically and visually this coming week.
And then we have one more video here.
Are you on forward? Yeah. Okay. Come with the horse there. So that was the Kūisaḥiʔis going out. That's the device that we built for this case, and it might have been better if we had several thousand feet of lead lines so we could place our vertical lines more close together. But we were working with what we had. I think I had something like 3,000 feet of line or something, and we, maybe 4,000, and we used it all. So yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks again, Jarod. I appreciate you short notice taking time. We're going to start to wrap up. Joe, you had one more question?
Yeah, just one quick question. Jarod, are the calls, the vocalizations she's been making, have they all been the same? Have you?
Yeah, so as you may know, the big killer whales don't have a very diverse repertoire of sounds, and so her calls are pretty standard. She's been making mainly 3 different calls. I think a T11, a T8, and I'd have to check with James, but I think a T3 are the calls that she's been making, and not many aberrant calls. They're very standardized. So yeah, but she's making a lot of them.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Jarod, and we'll keep tabs on your Facebook page, and any updates that you share with the community, we'll share here. We're here every week. You're welcome back. Maybe you can join us next week or the next to share the wonderful news that she found her family, because that's what we're all praying for and hoping for, and we'll keep holding that space here on our end and while you're doing the work. So thank you very much for all you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. Lastly, I just want to thank my partner Nicolette, and we've been out there every day, and also thank the Kūisaḥiʔis and Uchatlet First Nations for just being the heart of this entire effort. And yeah, that's it.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is a hard transition, because I don't, we've got so much going on, so many different emotions going on, and we're also getting ready for the premiere of Resident Orca, and we're all preparing our hearts for that as well. Raynell, what do you want to share with us first?
Well, I'd like to share, excuse me, on March 28th, we had a very small gathering here in Lac-Timich territory to view the Resident Orca documentary and to pray and sing together to send the documentary off to the rest of the world to view, so it's done in a good way. And then later we'll come back around to the community and do a community-wide viewing of the documentary at a later time. But it was a beautiful time when we gather in prayer and song. And we were able to stand up the filmmakers, Sarah Sharkey Pierce, Simon Snyder, and our executive producer, James Costa. These three have become family. They've been filming with us the last 4 years. So it's very surreal to be together. And at this point where we're going to share Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut's life journey with the world in hopes that it'll help with her legacy to heal her family, save the salmon, and to heal the Salish Sea. Because her family doesn't have much time either. And the salmon don't. Everything's on such a short timeline that it's critical that we get as much awareness and support out there. And this documentary, I think, has a great opportunity to garner that support. It's sad. It is sad. It's was filmed real time in the exact journey that her life, Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut, took.
Thanks, Rena. I'm going to share the trailer for those that may not have seen it. Show that now.
This is the exact capture location. Babies were being pushed away from their mothers, lassoed, netted. You talk about pain, you should hear 30 or 40 whales screaming.
Their whole goal was to generate revenue. They gave her a show name. They called her Lolita. She's hurting and she's not getting the care she needs. She's all alone.
They would make the decision just not to feed her anymore.
The first time I was in the water with her, you can't see past her face. She's huge. How can this whale be in this small tank? This is ridiculous. We gotta get down there.
We'll bring you home.
She's more than just a captive whale. She is our family.
There's a Native American tribe now claiming ancestral rights to this animal, and they wanted this animal back in her native waters where she belonged. That's a hell of a story. No one's ever told this story.
She's already been there 52 years.
Our great-grandparents, when they got taken off to boarding school, the savage was taken out of them. She went off to boarding school, and she's still there.
It's not hard to capture whales. What I think we've learned over time is how hard it is to put one back.
She's a corporate asset. We don't own her.
They never granted me permission on park grounds.
She's there. Can't hide a whale.
We have caused as human beings so much destruction, but there is hope.
How is she doing today?
Not great.
So it just seems so fitting that the world premiere is in Miami.
Yep.
And so we'll gather for the world premiere April 6th at the Silver Spot Cinema. And there'll be a second showing, which will be April 9th. And we're waiting to hear, we have submitted the documentary to the Seattle International Film Festival. We haven't heard back if we've been accepted, but we're going out to major film festivals around the world because it is critical to share her life's journey so that her legacy is going to be realized in saving her family. That's a sacred obligation, you know, that I have, many of us do, is to save her family.
Yeah, it needs to be shown there in Seattle. I remember when we had, Dr. Norman on and, when she was first working with Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut's, and she said, not enough people in Seattle even know her story and know what's going on with her family. So I really hope for that acceptance there, because it's important in that area to know, for those that don't know. It's continuing.
And I also believe that with the news that had just unfolded in the last 30 days about the termination of Miami Seaquarium's lease, and that'll take effect officially April 21st, I believe her death rose that awareness and how serious and dire these beings, over 500 of them, that are still there, that I think that the powers that be really had to see, well, we've lost Sk'aliCh'elh-tenaut's. We can't lose another 500. And I think her passing helped bring that to a close, to bring that lease to termination, to help save those other 500 beings.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for all. Oh, Marcia, go ahead. Let me unmute you here. Go ahead.
I just want to add to that, Raynell, that, even though she didn't share water with all of those other dolphins and other animals there, they were her family in a way. And so I agree with you on that she's looking over them. And I think her legacy is to help that part of her family find some sense of justice too. So, yeah.
Okay. Giles, I haven't talked to you to ask you your reaction to the documentary, the trailer there.
Oh, I get chills every time I see it. I am so thankful to Sharky for making this happen, and just Raynell, you're such a rock star through that whole thing. Speaking for Toki, and I'm very excited. Of course, it's heartbreaking that it came, that she passed away before, that she had the ending that she did. But I do think, as Raynell, you've counseled me a couple times not to lose despair, that her death is not without purpose, and that she's still working for her family. So yeah, it needs to be seen by everybody. I'm very excited.
Thanks, Giles.
Good.
So many good people out there spreading awareness and education and helping the family. And Giles, you're one of them. I just want to say I'm proud of my community, my family, people. I chose Wild Orca for my birthday fundraiser this year, and we raised our goal and went beyond. And so I'm really happy for that, because the work that you're doing for her family, Giles, is just invaluable. And I appreciate you and Eba. I don't know if Eba's nearby to come on screen, but the work that you guys are doing is there she is. There's the Wonder Dog right there. Let me put Eba on the screen. And I see she's wearing a piece of Toki's wet sneakers.
He's got Toki's. Yep, that was a special gift. Yep, she wears it every day.
Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I don't know what I just did. I just made everybody little. But thank you so much, Giles, for the work that you do. And Eba, we love you. We love you, Eba. What a spoiled baby, huh?
Yes.
Right now, that's not all you're doing this week. You have a very busy week. Tell us what you got going on in DC.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share this, because all of these things are coming to light to share her story, share her culture, and to share her legacy. So on April 3rd, I'll be speaking on a community panel for World Aquatic Animal Day. And my piece is going to be our relatives that live under the waves, the relationship that the Lac-Timish people, as well as many other indigenous sister tribes here, have, not only with Kʷiisaḥiʔis, but with the winged, the two-legged, and the four-legged are all extensions of our family. And it's important to share that viewpoint with, it's the law school at George Washington University that's sponsoring this day. And it's important that people in whatever field, if it's the legal field, if it's in science, whatever field it is, that they understand, to many of us around the globe, it's not a whale, it's not a fish, it's part of our family. We honor them as being sacred beings, and we're always giving honor and respect. And so that's my goal, is to share it with a new sector of people, that when they start writing legal briefs and when they are having opportunity to advocate for these beings, as they see it more than just an animal, that it's an extension of someone's family.
I don't know what is going on with my screen. Sorry, guys. I'm just moving everybody around, trying to rotate everyone. Thank you. So I put the link. I put the link in the comments for the folks on Facebook. And then Deb Cruz has it up there for those folks watching on YouTube if you want to copy that down so that you guys can watch live. I was registered. However, I'll be on a plane at the time, actually. I didn't realize it was the time conflicting, but I will watch it when I get back, and hopefully that's something that'll be recorded so we can continue to share that. All the information, all the education, we just can't have enough of it. So I'm just so grateful for every single person on the screen and every single person watching and in this community. Shirley, Bob, I know you're watching. Thank you so much for your part and your prayers. I know how powerful they are. I've prayed with you in the water, and just, I'm just comforted that Toki was surrounded by so many beautiful hearts, so many beautiful prayers, and so many beautiful people. And for that, I'm forever grateful. Know that. So thank you, guys. Howard, anything you would like to say before we start to wrap up here?
Well, just every time I see that trailer, it hits me harder. So the whole documentary is going to be a big emotional experience for all of us. But otherwise, thank you, Raynell and Joe and Giles and all the regulars, and Jarod is already off screen, but this has been a really amazing, wonderful episode of TokiTV.
I appreciate that. And actually, we do have, let's see, I'm going to take me off and put Jarod back on.
Oh, he is here. Good. Yeah, Jarod, thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's been great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And I don't know what I'm doing with these things. I can't speak and keep the flow going when I'm backstage because it won't let me talk. So, Jarod, thank you so much again. We'll close with the video that you shared with us. I'm trying to get that up. Just knowing that our prayers are with Little Brave Hunter every single day, and Raynell, we're with you and standing with you for your presentation coming up, and I look forward to being with you and seeing you in Miami, along with Marcia and Alejandro and Alma and everybody else. So I love all of you guys. Giles and Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll have to bring Jarod on more often if that brings all the experts to the screen. So I appreciate you guys a lot. Thank you guys. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.